with Arnold Dean. Hot talk, great guests. Weeknights at 6:15 from WTIC, Hartford.
BBC Radio, Canada's public broadcast.
Try Carter's Little Liver Pill. Good advice.
Good mornings only on KCMO Kansas City. It's 8 o'clock.
When you're tuned to CDS Radio.
This is the DX Central from the Static Podcast.
From Studio B of the North Shore Studios in Mandeville, Louisiana.
And welcome to episode number 5 of the DX Central from the Static Podcast. I'm your host, Lloyd Van Horn, here in Studio B of our North Shore Studios in Mandeville, Louisiana, and just down the hall from Studio A, where we just wrapped up Season 6, Episode number 3 of DX Central Live, and that's what we're here for today. This is actually the next installment in our DX Central Re-Live series, where we bring you the audio from our Friday night broadcast. For this episode, we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about some of the more off-beaten path type DX stuff, the not just AM and FM stuff you can DX, but things like NOAA Weather Radio. We talked about TV DX. We talked about non-directional beacons on the longwave band. We talked about AIS ship tracking. We talked about ADS-B flight tracking. So quite a few different things that you can add to your DX arsenal. And some of those actually do plug in with AM and FM DX. So we'll talk about that. We also did a little bit of an explore into SDR Console and using the navigator, the waterfall navigator, for reviewing IQ recordings for especially FM, things like Tropo and Sporadic E, and how you can adjust that contrast rate to make sure you can pull those signals out visually so you can know exactly where they are. You can zero in on those and get some audio out of them. So we talk about that, and we'll get to some of your shout outs. We didn't get to all of them in this episode. We kind of ran out of time, but we will be getting to those in the coming week. So make sure you join us Fridays at 23:45 UTC, 18:45 Central Time. And then once we get to daylight savings time being bye-bye in our review mirror, we get the standard time that changes to 00:45 UTC, which is still 18:45 Central Time. So if you're in the Central Time Zone or using that as your basis for knowing when to tune in, you're good to go. So you can join us at our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@DXCentral, or on our newly redesigned website, which should be up within the next 24 to 48 hours of this podcast being posted. Our newly redesigned website should be up and running at dxcentrallive.com. Very excited about that. With our full archive, we'll be adding, we already are, but we're continuing to add more show notes and things like that. So definitely want to check that out, bookmark it. It's going to be so nice when we get that one up. All right. Without further ado, let's get to this episode of DX Central Relive, Season 6, Episode 3.
From the Gulf South
to your corner of the world,
this is DX Central Live.
Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
From the North Shore Studios here in beautiful Mandeville, Louisiana, it's Studio A, and this is DX Central Live, Season 6, Episode 3. And so glad to have you guys here with us, as always, on a Friday night. The chat's over here just bumping like usual. We got our WWOZ t-shirt on tonight, representing the local public radio station here in New Orleans that we love so much. And been just like head down all week. Work. Day job stuff, and then close that laptop, and then it's DX Central stuff nonstop. Like that's been the week. First part of the week, we were going through, and I'm redesigning the DX Central Live website. So dxcentrallive.com, that's up now. You can go there now. The redesign hasn't happened yet. I'm waiting for domain to transfer over from Wix to HostGator, where we're at. And so once that happens, we're going to push the new site live. And this is going to be a nice one because it's got all of the archives of every season. I've gone through every single season, all now 6. And we've got all the thumbnails up. We've got all the links up to each individual episode. And I'm actually even going through and rewatching every episode and writing down like show notes about what the topics were that were discussed in each episode. So if you're wondering, hey, I know season 5 we talked about common mode chokes, you can go to that season 5 page, Control F, common mode choke, and you'll go right to the right episode, and you can click on it, and there you go. So, and I'm working on some other things that we can actually expand upon that, but that'll be later on. Right now, I just want to get the archive up, get all the show notes up for those where we actually did have those discussions and things like that, and go from there. So I believe the transfer is supposed to be done on Sunday, so maybe by the early next week, this coming week, we should have the new website up and running, the new dxcentrallive.com website with all the archives and everything else. So by next week, I should be able to show that off for you guys. Another thing that we worked on this week is our next podcast episode, which I'm not going to tell you yet what it's going to be, but I've been doing voiceover work and research and voiceover work and accumulating audio clips and all kinds of stuff. I will tell you, it is the first episode in a new series called The History of Radio. So what we're going to be doing in this podcast series, it's on the From the Static podcast, but we're going to be talking about important figures or important names or important stations or moments or all these different things in the history of radio. And so for this first one, we've got a doozy. And I was up at 6 o'clock here a few moments ago before we got the live stream going, editing, downloading clips, putting stuff in my audio editor. So that episode, I hope to have it released this coming week. It is a big one. And then let's see, what else did we do? We had some antenna work we had to do this week. We got the PA0 RDT mini whip back up and running on the Kiwi, so that's now in place. We had to replace the Skywire from our 15 by 56 Super Loop because it just broke. Like I don't if I didn't know any better, it looked like someone like took some wire cutters but you'd have to get like 15 feet in the air, and it's just weird. So it just broke. Just the Skywire so we took that down, replaced the Skywire this afternoon, got that up. And so now we've got that Super Loop back up and running, and we have the Mini Whip back up and running as well. So we're good to go there. And spent a lot of time this week, working on my setup for ADSB. And some of you guys might know that, I'm interested in that as well. And in flight tracking, I was reminded about that. My wife had a flight here recently, and I was watching her flight on like Flight Radar. And I was like, man, I need to get my ADSB back up and running because it just hadn't been working. So spent a lot of time on that this week. It's still not up and running just yet, but eventually we're going to have that so that our ADSB will be up and running, and you'll actually be able to go on our live DXing website and see the live map of what all flights we have here over us in Mandeville. I'm going to have 2 actually that I'll be feeding, and so it'll be pretty cool. And that reminds me that tonight, our main segment that we're going to be talking about, we're going to be doing our live DX here in a bit. As we get a little bit closer in here, we're going to do our usual live AM DX. We're going to do probably some FM recorded DX as well from our Tropo opening we had earlier in the week. But our main segment tonight, we're going to be talking about just about everything except AM and FM DX. We're going to be talking about all the other stuff like ADSB, AIS, ship tracking. We're going to be talking about TV DX. We're going to be talking about NOAA Weather Radio DX. We're going to be talking about non-directional beacons and longwave. Did I forget anything? Nope, that's all. So yeah, we're going to be talking about all that stuff on our main segment tonight. We're also going to talk about, show you guys an article from our friend Nick Langan over at Radio World Magazine. We had him on the show last year from the VHF-DX podcast, and he wrote a fantastic article about graveyard DXing. So we're going to obviously look at that since we're in the middle of our graveyard challenge. And, of course, we got your shout-outs to get to as well. Go to dxchallenges.com/shoutouts and get those in so we can get the verbal high five, the virtual high five going for you. Let's go ahead and get our first DX session going. This DX session is brought to you by the International Radio Club of America, IRCAonline.org. That's where you want to go for more information. Now, we are pulling up our, this is the DX Central Kiwi, and I know it says we're on the West Super Loop, which we might go over to here in a minute, but right now we're on the Mini Whip. I haven't done any DX yet on the Mini Whip because you didn't hear me talk about DX in there because I haven't done any this week. all the other stuff going on. So we're going to do our DX for our graveyard piece on this session right now on the Mini Whip. And remember, as we get into the top of the hour alert here in just a few moments, that we're going to go mic muted. And so if we have any stations that we hear IDs for during that top of the hour time frame time, just listen for this sound. When you hear that sound, that means the station ID'd. And we'll get around to that after the top of the hour alert is over and let you know who we heard. All right, let's go ahead and dive in here. Our first top of the hour alert of the night.
DX Central Live top of the hour alert.
All right, let's mute the mic. Let's go ahead and turn on the audio here on 1400 kilohertz here locally in Mandeville on the PA0 RDT Mini Whip. Let's see what we got. All right, we'll go ahead and pull here and get us out of this this sequence here. 1 second. Let us mute our audio. So I got, there's a sports station in there, and I'm pretty sure it's an ESPN. Now, there's a handful of candidates that could be from here in Mandeville. More than likely, it's KGVL out of Greenville, Texas. More than likely. I didn't get to hear an actual ID, but ESPN radio is in there. They're talking about the World Series and stuff, so it's in there. It's just, you heard it. I mean, I had to back that AGC threshold. This is with the mini whip now. Okay, this is the mini whip. I had to back that AGC threshold down to negative, or up to negative 45 dBm just to get some audio rumble down enough to be able to maybe have something pop up. So there you go. That's that particular one. Now, before we completely abandon all hope here that we would have something into, let me go up here. Before we abandon all hope, let's just see what we caught on our West Wire, our super loop here on our Jaguar recording that we were running. And let's just take a gander. Come on. Oh, I hate when it does this. Come on, Jaguar. That's a little sneak peek for later. There's a Fox Sports station in there too, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that one is Jack. Is it Jackswell? No, they're not. There's a Hattiesburg FSR, the Score. There's another one in here though that I thought was Fox Sports that I've logged here. So yeah, here's the Greenville, Texas, and you can see right here on the Jaguar map. That's how close. Right there, how close Greenville is to here. So more than likely that's who that ESPN was that we were hearing. But it's going to be, that's one of the things with the graveyard. If you don't get that ID, it's pretty hard sometimes to pull that out just off of clues and things like that, because there's so many stations that it could be. So didn't hear anything else there on the recording either. So oh, well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we have got some stuff to talk about. We're going to take a quick look, speaking of the graveyards, at our friend Nick Langen's article from Radio World. And we're going to dive into some other things that you can DX besides AM and FM. And some things that I know some of you guys are interested in and some you may not have tried yet. So we're going to talk just very broad brush, very high level about what they kind of entail and how fun they can actually be right here on DX Central Live.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central. Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
This man told me to say you're watching DX Central Live with Lloyd Van Horn. Can I have my juice now?
Then the snow so deep and cold, up in the north, you know. A man brave and bold, his story must be told. His antenna in the night, knocked down without a fight. A moose set on his sight, now radio's quiet tonight. Fix it up, fix it high, win a night under the sky. In the cold he became a fixer. 'cause a moose is no friend to a DXer.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana, where every Friday night, let me pull this over just a little, there we go. Every Friday night we bring you live DX, we bring you an out-of-focus camera. That's a little better. There we go. We bring you DX-related topics and conversations, shout-outs, challenges, all kinds of stuff here on DX Central Live. See you guys talking about the World Series. I am done with Major League Baseball because I'm an Oakland A's fan. And after what Fisher, the ownership there in Oakland, did to the team, to the fans, the big screw you to the fans, and by proxy, the entire leadership of Major League Baseball letting it happen, I'm done. So you guys enjoy. Stupid Fisher. All right, let's do some shout outs and see what you guys have been hearing this week.
Shout out loud, hear the call for every single big or small, from AM to FM to C to C. We celebrate the ones who snag the IT. Shout out loud, let it be known, you're never DXing all alone. Through the static we found our way, shout outs making waves today.
All right. We've got quite a few already in here. You guys are crushing it. Let's start with our friend Sean Kutsko, KX9X up in Illinois, and see what he's been hearing, because this guy always gets the good stuff. He's got the hookup. Been focused on the Graveyard Challenge since it started a couple of weeks ago. 61 stations so far, 23 new ones. My goodness. I made out like a bandit on 1340 with 9 new logs on that frequency alone. Furthest distance logs on the Graveyard Freaks. WDWR 1230 Pensacola, 669 miles. That's one of my locals, basically. KODY 1240 North Platte, Nebraska, 657 miles. KVNT 1450 Yankton, South Dakota, 510 miles. 2 other logs of note. KGSV 660 in California was logged on October 10th at 8 kilowatts, 1,782 miles. My California number 6. My gosh, man. You've been getting all these like under 10K Californians lately. HJNW 1170 Cartagena, Colombia with Caracol Radio tags. 10 kilowatts and 2,195 miles. It's been a good couple of weeks. Let's keep the train moving. Well, we're going to get you some log saws for one thing. There we go. And we got the new Latin American log 40. So, all right. Well done, my friend. Well done. Glad to see you having success on your bogs. Speaking of bogs. Notorious. Next shout out here is from our friend Jeff Immel, Notorious BOG in the chat. Well, he's Jeff in the chat, but Notorious BOG in all of our hearts, because this guy gets some really great stuff on his bog antennas, his beverages on the ground. Notorious. Said it was a joy to meet in person Sister Medium Wave DXer Stephanie while visiting Palm Springs this week. Yes, I love it when we all get together and have some good times. And Jeff is not only the king of the bogs, Jeff is like the master here of the meetup. There's been quite a few of you guys out there from the DX Central Live family that have met up with Jeff recently, and love to see it. Love to see the eyeball to eyeball stuff going on and some DX conversations happening outside of the chat and outside of the show. So well done, guys, getting together, and love seeing that. Love seeing that. Saw that picture in Slack and was like, yes, that's awesome. Well done, guys. Yes, he does have a theme now, and you're also going to like the next theme song that I have as well, Sean. I'll play it a little bit later on. Charles Williams in California. I need to get that little Schwarzenegger clip to start playing that as well. Heard faint music on 5:30 and was told it was probably Radio Encyclopedia from Cuba. Matched it with Lloyd's Kiwi SDR. Thanks to Jacob Hammond up in Minnesota and Lloyd for their help. Man, that's awesome, dude. You get the new Latin American log. There we go. And I'll give you the new log as well, because you got, and it's a new one. There we go. The chains. One of my neighbors in our neighborhood just had a tree crew. They came out and cut down 18 pine trees, and these are like 50, 60, 80 foot pines. And so it's been 4 days of chainsaws and trucks and sawdust and pollen now as well, because it's stirring up all the pine tree stuff. And when a couple days before they actually started, the neighbor between my house and their house, that neighbor was having the same tree crew come out and estimate, because they're going to get some trees also cut down in their yard. And they were getting awful close to the tree where my 62-foot omnidirectional FM antenna is up. And I was like, y'all are looking at cutting down that tree, are you? Because, no, come on, man. Don't do that to me. Because that is one of my beast antennas, man. That thing, it absolutely crushes it. So it's still up in the air. That tree is still safe. But every now hearing that's kind of not triggering, but kind of like, it's now over. Our friend Carl in Tennessee, at least for now, has some stuff. Now, he checked in late last week in the episode that we had last week. So good to see him back in the show, in the chat. Said, I've done very little AMDXing since early May, but except for some road trip DX I did in May and October, which I will eventually report on. I did some FM DXing, especially on July 4th, when I logged 17 stations via eSkip, with 16 of those being new. Most logs were on the Quotson DX286, and at least one of the TEF 6686 tabletops. The July 4th haul brought in stations with four states, 3 of them new, and 14 logs, 3 from those 3 new states. Minnesota was a new state with 12 stations logged. North Dakota was a new state with 1 new station, and Iowa a new state with 1 new station. Minnesota stations included KVSC 88.1, KNSR 88.9, KNGA 90.5, KNOW 91.1, KATO 93.1, KXRA 92.3, WMIS 92.1. That's a regular visitor here. KRUE 92.1, KKWQ 92.5, KCCM 91.1, KNCM 91.3, KZSE 91.7. In Iowa, KJIA 88.9. In North Dakota, KTWJ 90.9. 2 new stations from South Dakota, WTSD 91.1, KQSD 91.1, and a relog of KORN, Corn, on 92.1. Love hearing those guys. Also log new stations, WJMZ on 107.3 in South Carolina, WTNJ 105.9 in West Virginia, and WDBS 97.1 in West Virginia. That brought my FM totals to 208 stations, putting me past the milestone of 200 FM stations. There you go, man. Well done, my friend. Yes, sir. You got it, man. Bunch of new ones, some new states. So we're going to do some fireworks here for you. And so let's also do the log saw here for you, because you got the logs as well. There you go. Well done, Carl, and glad to have you back in there, my friend. Good to see you in, and we'll get you back in the Slack as well. I know I saw you mention earlier you were having some difficulty there. We'll get you back in. All right, we have a handful of additional shout outs. We'll get to those next hour. Let's go ahead and take a quick look here at our friend Nick Langen's article from Radio World Magazine. And this is so cool because when I was in radio, when I used to work in radio, I was in corporate and mom and pop type stuff. And when I was in radio, we used to read this magazine. We used to read Radio World. And now I know a guy who writes for it, and he talks about DX Central stuff, and he talks about DX, and it's like, I always said one of these days I would be in Radio World. I didn't know it would be for DX, though. That's kind of cool. If you go to radioworld.com and go all the way down here towards the bottom of the homepage, you'll see an article down here under Tech and Gear for Nick's Signal Spot. And here he's got Digging Up the AM Radio Graveyard. And it's a fantastic article. I'll go ahead and throw the link here into the chat. That way you guys can all have some fun with that. A fantastic article about what the graveyard is and what makes it special. And he put us in the article. Yay! Thanks, Nick. Again, I made it. I always wanted to. Let's see. It's a full dive into the graveyard, some history of the graveyard stations, and kind of what it got us to the point where we have so many stations on these frequencies. Jacob mentioned he's got a really cool map here that shows all the different graveyard. I mean, look at this sucker. This is a big old map, man, that he made of all the graveyard stations on all the different frequencies. You can definitely see, I mean, this is why our East Coast folks clean up on these graveyard challenges, because it's just tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff here. But the rest of the country gets to play in it as well, because there's still quite a bit. Even out west, you've got some pretty good saturation here of graveyard stations to be heard. So you're talking 899 stations. That's 21.7% of all AM stations in the United States can be found on these 6 frequencies. So thank you to Nick for a fantastic article. Always love seeing DX being able to be represented anywhere outside of the industry, or outside of the hobby, rather, especially when it's in the radio industry itself. So awesome to see. Appreciate your support of what we're doing here and getting people to DX in the graveyard. All right. Let's talk a bit about some other forms of DX. So talked about AM, we've talked about FM. We'll get back to both of those a bit later here in the show. But I did want to take a few moments, because we did this one of these a little bit later on in the season last year, and I felt like it was a little too late. But now we're at a good spot in the season for it. So let's talk about some of these other forms of DX. So we talk so much about AM and FM, we kind of forget sometimes about other things that you can DX. And a lot of us, we have other things that we do like to DX. So, I grew up in a home that was filled with just about anything you could DX, we did. So shortwave obviously was one of the things that we DX'd. And Mom at Shortwave Central, she is still very much involved in that. And she writes a column for the Spectrum Monitor talking about shortwave and what you can still hear. There's still quite a bit to hear. It's not as much as there was, no, but there's still quite a bit to hear on the bands as far as international broadcasters, and even some of the tropical stuff. Not as much as there was, but there is still some. Obviously, Dad, a lot of you know, really big into the military communications, satellite communications, the utility world, so to speak. So always in the house, we had some sort of radio that was on with bleeps and boops of different things, from some spooky stuff God knows where, and you'd hear the communications from SAC and all these different things on in the house at different times. Also lots of work with scanners and local police and local first responder type stuff. So military aircraft, ATC, air traffic control, we DX'd everything in our house. So some other things, though, that I think kind of tie in with what we do, and that's the main thing I want to kind of talk about here, is how these other areas of DX kind of tie in a little bit with the stuff that we do with AM and FM, because it's not like it's just like some random thing. Well, there are a couple that are random in here, but it's really there is a lot of tie-in to these forms of DX with what we do with AM and FM. And I'm going to start with one that's pretty obvious, and that is the world of weather DX. So let's actually take this down here. I don't know which one I've got it on. None of them. I can put it on here, up here on this one. All right, so let's take our look here. We had a Tropo opening here recently in the Gulf Coast area, and it got us over into like Texas and West Louisiana and stuff like that. There was a little bit of Arkansas, but mostly it was kind of Texas down into Mexico. That was on like Monday, Tuesday. So this gave me an opportunity to do something that I hadn't done in a while, which was record the weather band during a Tropo opening. So you've heard me talk before that Tropo openings typically start a little bit higher in the VHF portion of the spectrum. So you're usually starting out in like the 220-ish range, and then it works down into FM. So it's the complete opposite of what we typically see with Sporadic E, where it starts at like 12, 10 meter HF bands, and it works its way up into the VHF bands until we get to FM and beyond. Tropo does kind of the opposite. So with this one, you're typically, if you've ever looked on like the APRS map, the VHF APRS map, which I'll pull here for those of you who might be not familiar with that map, that is this one. And this usually shows what paths are populating or being reported by APRS, which is ham radio 2 meters, 144 megahertz, right? So typically what you're going to see here, these are paths where there are stations that are being received, and then you'll see who is receiving them, right? Because these APRS, this automatic packet reporting system, it's just kind of operating, and then anyone who can receive it, they receive it. And then they are also transmitting their position, and those other people are receiving them. And so it's a nice way to kind of build this network to kind of see how does propagation look. And so when you're seeing this on this map, you're looking at 2 meter, 144 megahertz. So you'll see sometimes there'll be these great big red blobs going on that map, on the APRS 2 meter map, but FM's kind of And you're like, wait a minute, I'm under the red. I should be getting something, right? Well, maybe not, because sometimes it doesn't get down to FM. So we have to go a little higher to experience that Tropo. And the NOAA Weather Radio portion of the band is one of those great ways to do that. It sits at around 162 megahertz. And as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frequencies. You see the 7 traces here on our screen. 7 frequencies that start at 162.4 and they go to 162.5, separated by 25 kilohertz in each one. So from .4, .425, .45, .475, .5, .525, and .55. Those are your 7 frequencies. So it's a pretty narrow bandwidth, okay? Which is awesome because you can get very tight on that bandwidth, right? I've got mine set, I think it was at 300 and something kilohertz, or right around 200 kilohertz wide. You can run a much longer recording on the weather band with that tight bandwidth, and it's going to take up less file space than if you were doing, say, the AM band at like, almost 2 megahertz, right? Almost 2 megahertz. So you can do these recordings. I do it in SDR Sharp. You can do the entire NOAA Weather Radio band in a very easy little section. We're using an AirSpy R2 for our main NOAA Weather Radio receiver here. And we have a 162 megahertz cut J-pole sitting about 21 feet in the air. Now, there's all kinds of antennas that you can get. You can get, like, I've got a J-pole. They have Yagis that are custom cut for the 162 megahertz portion of the band. So you can do that with these. So there's a bunch of different equipment options. I know, we've got our friends up in Boot Crew North, like Ethan Hester and some of those folks. They actually DX off like the little Midland weather radio, like the little one you set up next to your nightstand or whatever. It's got a telescopic whip and, let you know when there's a tornado warning. They DX weather band off of that. And so what we have here is we have our recording from, I believe this was Monday. And so you'll see here on the trace, we've got this big one over here, this 550. That's my local one here in New Orleans that I grew up listening to when I was a kid. before I even knew you could DX these things. 475, the .475 is also a local, and we've got some other kind of regional ones here at 525 and 400. Now 425, 450, and 500, those frequencies are a little more open here. So when we do have some tropo conditions coming in, those are the frequencies that I can really kind of focus on to see if I'm getting anything. Now, I'll play you a little snippet here. I'm pretty sure most of us, if not all of us, at some point have heard NOAA Weather Radio broadcasts and know what they sound like, but we'll give you a little snippet here just in case.
15 miles per hour in the afternoon. Chance of precipitation 50%.
Now you're hearing some mixing going on, some interference. It sounds like that's because there's multiple stations in here. And so if you have a directional antenna that you can turn, or if you have something like an RSP Duo where you can do phasing, I have done that. I have used phasing before to get rid of my locals and log another NOAA Weather Radio station underneath. So that is something you can do. Now, I've tried to use the code channel canceller here in SDR Sharp. Supposedly, it's supposed to work on narrow FM, which is the mode that you would use here for NOAA Weather Radio. It's not wide FM like you do on FM broadcast. It's a narrow FM. Supposedly, it's supposed to work. I've never gotten it to work. So I don't know. We'll keep looking at that and trying that. But if you have a directional antenna, you can turn. That can help you get rid of the interference station. Or if you have some sort of phaser like the RSP Duo, you can use that. So this is a fantastic, fantastic way to check the propagation to see if conditions are open. If they're not open on FM, you got 162 sitting there. You can probably DX. Even if FM is open, I will usually still, especially if it's open, I'll usually still come over here and run a recording on the weather band just to make sure I'm not missing anything, because there may be an opportunity for me to get some new stuff in. Now, if you're one of those folks that likes to go kind of hardcore and you like to just pull them in nonstop, it's slow going. This is everything that I've logged since June of 2024. I've gotten 19 stations logged since June of 2024. So it's not instant gratification. All right. Even when there's an opening, it's not instant gratification necessarily, because once you start to kind of get those tropo openings, you get a lot of the ones in the same directions. You're probably going to get a lot of the same NOAA Weather Radio stations in there. But meteor scatter, fantastic for NOAA Weather Radio. It's super, super challenging. I'm not going to lie. When you're getting those little blips, it can be really hard to find out who you just heard. It takes a little more luck and ingenuity to kind of get those in from meteor scatter, but it can be done. Again, our friends at Boot Crew North, Les Rayburn over in Alabama, they love this stuff, and they do a really great job at meteor scatter weather DX. So, like I said, this is what I've done in over a year and a half almost, and we'll see how this recording pans out. I think most of this is stuff I've already logged, but we're going to double check the recording just to be sure. I mean, you can get some pretty good stuff here. I've got one here. This is 595 miles to Brownsville, Texas. We've gotten one here, 489 miles up into Missouri. Here's another one here to Corpus Christi, Texas. So we've gotten some nice ones as far as distance goes. This is when we had a nice opening to Tampa. That was cool. So you can get some good stuff. If it's a good enough tropo opening, you can get some good stuff. But again, it is slow going. Don't expect it to be like instant gratification where you just start doing it and all of a sudden you're just like racking up all kinds of NOAA Weather Radio. It's a challenge. And can you get sporadic E on NOAA Weather Band? Yes. We did see quite a bit of that this year. In our logs that we were pulling in from FM List, there was quite a few folks that we're pulling in NOAA Weather Radio logs via sporadic E. It takes a heck of an opening for that MUF to get up into 162 megahertz, but it can be done. Okay. So we'll be doing more stuff. We'll be doing more talking about weather radio as we kind of go along, but I just wanted to kind of get you started there with some basic stuff on weather radio. Now, the next one I want to talk about is similar as far as DX goes, because it's the same location. It's the same part of the spectrum that we talk about when we look at NOAA Weather Radio. Well, we're talking about the same spectrum when we look at AIS. AIS is the automated broadcast transmission that comes from ships that lets you know where the ship is located, who it is, where it's from, where it's going, all that kind of stuff, what speed it's going, and that kind of stuff. And so here, this is an AIS map that shows ships all over the world. You'll see there's just, I mean, you think the ADS-B maps are packed with airplanes? Look at the ship traffic. This is insane. So if you are someone who lives near a lake or a river like the Mississippi River here, look at that. You can actually see the Mississippi River very clearly and some of the other tributaries by looking at the AIS map. So if you live near a big lake where there's a lot of boats on it, or if you live near the ocean where you might get out into international waters even, AIS is another really cool thing that you can DX. So you can use some of the same antennas you're using for your NOAA Weather Radio if you're doing that, and you can set up and do AIS tracking. It works very, very similar to how you do ADS-B, but you're just receiving these ship transmissions, these little bursts of transmissions that says where they're located, and then from there you have that reporting back to the map just like ADS-B does. And so you'll see here, this is my local area here in Mandeville. I don't have an AIS operation yet. I've got the SDR set aside for it. I've got the antenna set aside for it. I just haven't gone through the process of setting it up and doing everything I need to do for that. I haven't decided if I want to do a PC or a Raspberry Pi or what I want to do. But AIS, you can see here we have some stuff here on one of the local rivers. These are some boats on the local rivers that are broadcasting. During the day when folks are out on the lake here is super, super awesome for AIS. And that's one of the things I think I can probably get pretty good. If you have a tropo opening, you can get further out, right? So if you're especially one of these coastal areas, you get some good coastal tropo, you can get further out AIS catches. And so this now becomes another one of those things, like how far can I get out on AIS because of tropo or whatever it might be. So I am hopeful that when I get my AIS station up and running, if we get a good tropo opening, maybe I can see some stuff down in the Gulf. So maybe we'll see. It's going to be across the horizon, so probably not. But if nothing else, if I can at least do the lake and some of the rivers around here, maybe down the Mississippi even. But, maybe there's a shot at some AIS down to the Gulf from here. That would be cool. So another thing that you can DX ships. We did talk briefly while we're kind of on the topic of tracking. We talked about flight tracking, ADS-B. Now, I don't have anything I can show you right now because I'm still trying to get my flight tracker set up all working, and we got some changes we need to do. But this is essentially ADS-B because this is a lot of this. What you see here is being fed by ADS-B receivers. And so what you're basically able to do is if you have, let's say this was my ADS-B map right here, I could see all the stuff in my local area. You can click on the different planes and you can see where they're coming from, where they're going to, what kind of plane is it, how high are they, what's their bearing, how fast are they going, all that kind of stuff. So with these websites like FlightAware and Flight Radar and things like that, they have paid versions and they have versions that are free, but they have restrictions on them, how long you can stay on them at one time and things like that. If you have an ADS-B tracker, you can just put it up and it runs. It's a 1090 megahertz, 1.09 gigahertz, and you just let it run. And it sits there and it looks for these transmissions from these airplanes that are flying over you, maybe at 30,000, 40,000 feet above you on their way to a whole other city. I see stuff on the way down to Mexico quite a bit. You'll see private planes, commercial planes, if you have the right setup, military planes, things like that. So this is another one of those things that's super, super fun, is to put up your antenna and you're just like we do with any other form of DX. You're fighting the elements, you're fighting the ionosphere, you're fighting the atmosphere, and needing to know. Well, this one you're looking at line of sight, obviously, but you got to put your antenna up and you got to get your right feed line and maybe get an LNA to boost your signals and a SAW filter so you can cut out anything that's not for that particular band, and then you have to do the SDR setup and all this stuff. So it's a really cool form of DX. You're not going to see as much as far as like enhanced tropo or sporadic E or anything like that here, but it's still pretty cool. Like to see how far out can you see the planes from your local location. Well, you're always looking at improving your setup so you can see further and further and further out, right? So ADSB is a really, really cool one that you can look into if you're wanting to do flight tracking and combine like geography and aviation and radio and all these different things that we might have interest in. ADSB is a great one. The next one I want to talk about here is longwave. So we talked about some of the VHF stuff. Now, actually, before we get out of VHF, one more thing I did want to talk about is TVDX. So back in the day, TVDX and FMDX went hand in hand. You could sit there and watch Sporadic E as it got out of the low end or the high end of the HF band, the low end VHF. It would get into like channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. You could actually turn your TV to those channels and just sit there and wait for the DX to show up. I used to do it. And it was a really great harbinger for like, oh, okay, now we're at channel 4, channel 5. And when it gets to channel 6, boom, you're into the FM band. We don't really have that as much anymore because of the way the TV signals are now transmitted on different frequencies and channels and HD TV and stuff like that. But you still can DX TV. So I actually have something here that I have at my house that we've set up. Let me get this pulled up here. There is a provider here called Silicon Dust. And they have these little boxes here that you can use. I've got one that's got 4 tuners, but it's called HD Home Run. And with this, you can actually connect your outdoor antenna. We've got a Winegard HD antenna here at the house. You got the low band VHF and the upper band UHF and all that stuff on it. And you plug your antenna into it. And I have the one that's got multiple tuners, so I can use it to watch my local channels, which I do. But I also have one of those channels that's devoted to always be scanning. It's always scanning all the available channels and looking for DX. And then it takes those logs that it finds and it uploads it to a map at rabbit ears, just like the FM RDS autologger. So this is my all-time. These are all the TV stations that my HD Home Run has seen. And you'll see a lot of these are from 2023, but we did have recently here, KATY in Katy, Texas, a distance of 330 miles. This was actually 2023 as well. Where's the one from this? Here it is. I knew I just saw them. This was this week, August 21st, 2025. Saw them here in our Tropo opening that we had. We also had some more that came in here. Houston, Texas, KIAH. We had another one. Where did it go? Lake Charles, Louisiana, KVHP right here. KYAZ, this was one that we saw here on our Tropo opening this week. So these auto loggers, just like with FM, will take those decodes of what TV stations it receives and then upload it to the map. So I want to do some more of this year as we get more and more Tropo. Now I've got a better antenna now. I got to get a little bit higher, but we still got a better antenna than we used to have. And just see what we can get. And so this can be another good harbinger, especially during Tropo openings. This can be another good harbinger. So if you don't have any FMDX coming in, maybe you're getting some Tropo on your TV band, right? Maybe you're getting some Tropo on 162 megahertz for your NOAA Weather Radio. There's always something to DX. So we talk about these times when the bands are dead and there's nothing to DX. There's always something to DX. You just have to be a little flexible. The last one we're going to talk about here is longwave. And longwave and non-directional beacons. This is something that I always knew was there. I dabbled in the law a little bit when I was younger, but I never really took it seriously. And I wish I had of, because NDBs are on their way of being phased out gradually in the US at least, and in other places as well. But there's still stuff to hear here. I'm going to take you down here to 212 kilohertz. And I talk about this because this is one of those that, just like NOAA Weather Radio and some of those, can be kind of saddled up to FM as far as like how conditions are. Well, if you've got really good AM conditions, NDBs are going to probably be really good as well. And that can also mean like down into like South America, Latin America, things like that. We've heard some of those NDBs here. So this is, let me see if I can zoom in. Now I'm not seeing. Okay, I'm on the mini whip. This PA0 RDT mini whip that we use is a fantastic longwave NDB sniffer. It does a fantastic job at pulling them in. Now, I don't see my usual 212 here, which is over by Hammond. So I'm not sure if maybe I saw them just the other day. Hope they're not off of the air now. Making a liar out of me. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. But what you can do is you can start down. We have a whole episode we devoted to this in season 5. So when we get the show notes put in for that one, you'll be able to look that up on our archive website at dxcentrallive.com. So I'm not going to talk about the how here necessarily, but you'll see here we have these little bits of Morse code right here. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those little bits of Morse code, and then you can go sit down on that frequency and listen in, and let's see if we can hear a little bit. There you go. So you can kind of hear it in there. And you can listen in for the Morse code. And I mean, even if you're not great at Morse code, I'm not super fantastic at it myself, but I can pull up a visual, like all the Morse code dots and dashes up on their screen, have that next to it. So you can sit there and be like, I'm hearing, I'm going to look at the list. Okay, that's R, right? So you can actually kind of help yourself out a little bit there. This is another one that I've found some pretty good success with over a very short amount of time. I did this last February is when I started my longwave NDB DX, and you can see here, just in the span of basically not even a full month, this is what we did. We had 93 stations that we logged here in the span of basically a month, and we had Ecuador in here, Puerto Rico is in here, there's Trinidad and Tobago, a couple Canadians, so quite a few states. So there's still some good stuff to hear on longwave in the NDB band. It just takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of patience, and I would jump on it while you can, because who knows? I mean, who knows how long they're going to be around? They're supposed to be getting phased out gradually between now and next year. Maybe we'll see, but maybe if you have one that's kind of near you and it goes away, that opens up an opportunity for you to hear something new. So go out, try it out, get it while you can. Again, that PA0 RDT mini whip is a fantastic option if you're looking for a great long wave antenna. You wouldn't think it's like that big, but the thing is amazing on long wave. All right, those are some of the other things that we can DX. And hopefully that's giving you some things to think about as you want to find those things that you can try to hear when maybe the bands aren't being cooperative on the thing that you're originally trying to DX. Maybe the AM band kind of sucks. Well, let's go take a look at maybe some NOAA Weather Radio, or maybe some FM, or maybe some Tropo AIS or TV DX, or maybe we wanted to go to work on our ADSB. I'll get to that in a second. Or maybe you want to go up and do some HF, some ham radio work, right? So there's always something to DX, always something, even if it's not the thing that you're right now at this very moment in the mood to DX. There's always something that you can try out. So, all right, let's get ready to do some DX, and we're going to go back up here into the graveyard, and we're going to go on our mini whip and see what we can see in the graveyard. Now, there's a couple of frequencies that I haven't spent a lot of time on, and so we're going to do some of that this time. And one of those frequencies, we're actually going to start here on our Air Spy, HF Plus Discovery, because we're going to use the code channel canceller to get rid of my local WBOK down on 1230. This DX session, by the way, is brought to you by the National Radio Club, nationalradioclub.org. That's where we're going to start this DX session here on 1230 and see if we can get rid of my local. We're going to use the code channel canceller. So the steps here we're going to take. First thing we're going to do, we're going to use our micro tuner. Make sure your micro tuner is on. We're going to put our cursor in the micro tuner right here in the middle, right here where the peak is for my local signal. And now we're going to hit enable. And there they go. The code channel canceller, the magic. And down here at the bottom on our correction, we're going to only put in just as much as we need. I don't need more, because the more you put in, the more watery the sound and the signals are going to be. One more, because now that if I back it off too far, my local comes back in. There we go. That is my local gone. I'm going to hit the record button because I want to take this up to the top of the hour and see what we can catch. Let me see what I missed here in the chat. Oh, I missed quite a bit. You guys have been chatting. Barry, again, I'm reading back through here now, 20 minutes ago? I missed listening to those cordless phone frequencies. Of course, I received them by accident. Yeah. The things you can learn about your neighbors. And also Barry mentioning potential for Hurricane Melissa to be impacting Cuba. Thought about that myself, man. I hope that doesn't do what they say it's going to do. So didn't hear anything on either 1230 or on 1450 as we tried on both frequencies. Just not much. Just so much there from the rumble. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll do some more AMDX. And we're also going to do some FMDX. So don't go anywhere, my friends. More DX Central Live right after this.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central. Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
This has been, and I don't think I'm exaggerating. I've got the data to back it up. This has been one of the best weeks of AMDX I have ever had as a DXer. Plain and simple.
You're watching DX Central Live with Lloyd Van Horn, and that's a very wise thing to do.
Just right, static fills the air, hope fades to despair. You crack the code so clear, caught what I want to hear. Through the noise you smiled, I'm lost for a while. All I hear is in a world of bliss. You found the diamond shore. Question 5 till the end of time. Till the end of time.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana. We are in Studio A. Just down the hall is Studio B, where we do the From the Static podcast. And we have a new episode. Obviously, we'll have this audio from our live stream will be uploaded this weekend, but we have another episode, a brand new little bit of content coming your way on hopefully this coming week, and it's on the history of radio. We're going to be doing a whole series of the history of radio. In this particular segment, we are looking at one particular radio station and telling the history of that station. And so make sure you go to fromthestatic.net and follow us there, or wherever you get podcasts. Make sure you look us up, DX Central from the Static, and make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do. That way you can be notified when we get that episode posted, because I promise you're going to want to hear it. And it's going to be like 30, 45 minutes long. So it's not going to be a super long episode. I mean, you can knock out a walk, you can knock out your yard cutting, you can go check your antennas, make sure everything looks good, and just pop in the headphones or the earbuds and get this episode knocked out, because it's going to be really, really awesome. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So, I was wondering, because I was looking on the longwave earlier when we were looking at the NDB stuff, and I was wondering, how's the lightning looking? We haven't really had a lot of lightning. You guys haven't seen the lightning map up this season yet, because we haven't really had much here storm-wise over the last month or two. And so I pulled up the lightning map and I was like, well, that's pretty good. But longwave looked like it was pretty bumping with lightning. Where's the storms at? And then I zoomed out and I was like, oh my God, there it is. It's in Texas and Oklahoma, mostly Texas. So that's if you're trying to do any DX tonight on longwave or medium wave, and it's a bit on the noisy side, that's why, because our friends in Texas are sending some nasty stuff our way. We are going to do some more AMDX here in a bit, but before we do that, I did want to spend some time looking at some files from our recent Tropo opening here in Mandeville, where we had some Gulf Tropo. We did a couple recordings, and both on Weatherband and on So I want to do some FMDX here as well. It's not going to be live DX, but it's going to be FMDX all the same. So there you go. Let's do this now. This DX session brought to you by the Spectrum Monitor. The Spectrum. There we go. Nope, not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Nope. Okay, well, I guess we're going to have to put this up here then. There we go. TheSpectrumMonitor.com. That's where you want to go for more information about getting yourself a subscription to the best darn radio magazine for DXers that you can find. All right. So we've got a couple of files that we recorded here. Now, this is our live band right now. I want to show you this because this is going to be a nice point of comparison. You'll see our map up here in the top corner here of our screen, where we have our RDS autologger map. Let's go ahead and you see what it looks like right now. This is kind of dead band, maybe a little bit of light tropo enhancement, nothing too significant, but that's what our normal FM band looks like here. Kind of gross, huh? That's a lot of signals. Let's see what it looked like here in our recent opening that we had here on Monday night, Tuesday morning. I just need to pull up go to I put that on the drive. Oh, maybe not. I did. Let's see if this one is one of the ones that will have it. I haven't pulled these files up at all, so I have no idea what to expect. So now you're going to see this is what the band looked like at 4 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning, Monday night. That's the difference in tropo versus basically a dead band for us. That's the difference. You can see that very clear difference between the upper half and the lower half of that waterfall. So without running afoul of our friends at YouTube with copyright, we're going to do a little bit of FMDX here. And this will be with I'm just loading up our waterfall here, our waterfall navigator, so we can try to see where we have some frequencies that have some stuff on it. Now, this is a little bit different for tropo versus eSkip. With eSkip, I'll be looking at 107.7 because I have a station on 107.9. I'll be looking at 107.7 and some of those other frequencies and just looking, okay, these are frequencies that should be closed off and should have something already on, or should not have anything on them. Do I have anything showing up on the waterfall? So that's where I would take this waterfall view. So if you're in SDR Console and you go to the Receive Playback tab, over on the far-ish, right-ish area, you'll see a button that says Navigator. Now, typically, when you start off in SDR Console, the Navigator is going to default to a view that gives you like little boxes for every minute. I don't use that one anymore. I used to because I didn't know I could change it. You'll see on the Navigator window, the little panel that pops up for the Navigator, you'll see a handful of buttons up at the top. There's a play, pause, stop, all that kind of stuff. On the far right of those buttons, there's a hamburger there, a little 3-line stack. And that brings up a new dialog box for options. And what you want to choose is the option that says waterfall. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you your entire recording. And it's going to give you everything that you've got, waterfall view, so you can see everything kind of all at once. So I've got this here. This was about I want to say a 35-minute recording, wasn't it? Yeah, about 35 minutes. So this is 35 minutes of a full band recording, as you can see here, those of you who are on with us live. It's going to follow whatever you do here on screen. So one of the things that I can do is I can adjust my contrast. And typically this is what I do when I'm doing like eSkip reviews. I'll bring my contrast way up to the point where you're like, I shouldn't have it that high, right? No, you should. Because what you're wanting to do is look for those weaker signals. I've had many a time where If I had not had that contrast way up, I would have just not even looked for a signal and would have missed some DX that I would have gotten there. It's also going to follow your zoom. So I'm going to zoom in here, and it's going to follow whatever zoom scale you have. Now, I'm centered on 98.3 right now, so I'm going to take this up to 107.7. For some reason, I've just gotten in the habit of starting up at the high end of the band. I guess because of E-skip, I just start reviewing at the high end of the band, and then I work my way back down. That seems to be easier for me because that way I can level set where my MUF is. And I can see very clearly. So if I go up top and I see nothing on 107.7 or 107.3 or 107 or 106.9 or things like that, I just keep going down until I get to that point where the MUF hit and I start my review. I still do that with Tropo. I just gotten used to it. So that's kind of how I do mine. So here you'll see we have, looks like some HD from 107.9 here on 108.1 and 107.7. So not a lot as far as signals go here of an actual signal on 107.7, but I did have something. Let me go to another file here. I did have something on an earlier file when we were doing live recording here in the shack, and that should be here. Here we go. This is a 21-minute file, right? Yeah. This is around 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, we're going to pull up that navigator. We're going to let it run. That is one thing you'll definitely want to make sure you kind of keep in mind is when you first pull up a file, if you've got this waterfall navigator pulled up, you're going to need to give it some time to populate. You'll see here it's generating this waterfall file for me to be able to see everything. So it just takes a little bit of time for that to process. Okay. So 107.7. Let's see what we have here. This is, again, a frequency that normally is open here. So let's see what we have. And I'm just going to look here on the waterfall. Now, right now, oops, I didn't want that. Right now, we've got a lot of HD hash, which is interesting because that means we're probably getting some HD hash from some Tropo DX. But we're also getting some content here. Now that sounds like one of my local or semi-locals. There's some hash. So what I'm doing here is I want to show you. Now that's some really strong HD signal here on 107.5. Now I've got a local on 107.5. It's a K-Love, but I don't think that HD hash is them. If I remember right, they are not HD. So that's some Tropo HD that's coming in. So I'm looking for anything right now, anything that's like yellow or like a signal in here. It's all just HD stuff. So let's go down a little bit in frequency and see if we can get off of this. Let's go to 107. So here's my local on 107.5. I'm pretty sure that's who that is. We're going to turn this down. So, yep, that's Jean Lafitte, Louisiana. KNOL, that's my local K-Love for New Orleans. Now we're going to sit on 107.3. And another thing that I do is I do this. Let me get back on frequency here. Is as I go, I will recenter. So now I hit center. So now I've recentered this waterfall view here, this navigator, on my current frequency, which right now is 107.3. So this is how I usually do my reviews and how I get through them pretty quick. So I'm just looking for any place. So we've got some good signals there. Yeah, that's local, semi-local. So that's the Tropo side. Now it's a little trickier, a little more, I guess, challenging on Tropo, especially here because there's so many signals kind of stacked in. Let me show you the difference of what this looks like when we're doing it on E-skip, because that's a different story. Do the 57-minute. Let's do this one. So we're going to pull up, this is from August 13th. And this is an hour-long recording. So I want to show you the difference of how this waterfall view looks from that tropo we just saw compared to a sporadic E opening when we get those in the summertime. So this again is this is sporadic E from August 13th, which was probably our strongest opening of the year here in Mandeville. So once this pulls up, you'll see again, this is an hour, so it's taking a little bit longer for this one to populate. But then we're going to show you, because you'll see very clearly what I'm talking about with the high contrast and how these signals kind of bake in. Again, the software that we're using here is SDR Console. You can use, obviously a lot of folks like to use HD SDR for FM. But SDR Console for me, for how easy it is to navigate, and we talked about WaveView DX, right? I haven't played really with WaveView DX as far as a recording review for FM. I from what I remember, I don't think the resolution would be probably low enough. And what I mean by that is like how many seconds are in each line of view on WaveView DX. I don't know that it's tight enough for meteor scatter, because usually those meteor scatter bursts are like a second. And I think the shortest amount of resolution was like a 5 second per line frame. So it may not be super good. I may be completely wrong about that, so correct me if I am. It may not be super good for meteor scatter, but it could be good for sporadic E. To show you when you have like what we're looking at here with our waterfall view, when you have those signals coming in. So you guys are here talking some TIS. We don't have, I haven't heard a TIS station in a very long time. And it's not for not trying, because I have tried to pull some TIS in. Back in the 90s, TIS DX on AM in the expanded band was one of my all-time favorite things to do. Back before the expanded band was actually like a thing, like, where we had every frequency had stations on it, when it was still kind of Lando experimental. You had 1610 from Anguilla. You had a lot of TISs. There was one station, I want to say it was 1660 or 1680, that the Army did a test station called K-Truck. So that was there. I have a QSL from that one. I remember when New Jersey went live on 1660. I think it was like WJDM or something along those lines. So like I'm talking way back in the day. TIS DX back then was awesome. Remember from North Carolina listening to Chicago TIS, Texas, like Corpus Christi, that area TIS on 1620, 1610 used to have some that would pop in and out. So it was so much fun, but I haven't heard any TIS in a while. And I'm guessing it's because we have stations on the frequencies, but even like 1610, well, we have Ontario, but even 1610 though, I haven't heard anything really like fading up or doing anything. So I miss TIS DX. I miss it. All right, let's look here at this waterfall view. So again, I'm going to crank this contrast up, and I like to have it so that the contrast, the bottom line of the little contrast or slider here on the side that I'm kind of moving up and down here, I like it around 120 or so, and the top around 110, just above 110. That gives me a really good contrast for looking for weak signals, or for like those like just little weak E-skip bursts. So here's a good example. Here you'll see this guy right here. Now that doesn't look like much, but listen. Now I am going to oops, I'm on the wrong frequency. That's why. I just want to make sure I've got my there we go. So let's go back up here now. Watch. Now, right here, they're kind of there, but you don't really see much. And then watch as we start to see this little splatter right here. And right here. Then we get down to here, and now watch what happens when we get into this little spot right here. This is super loud. Now, see how good that signal comes up there? Again, that's not yellow. That's barely there. This is visually, but I've got my contrast cranked up so high, I might even go a little bit higher. So we're somewhere about between 120 and 130 on the low end, and right past the 110 on the high. That gives you, now you can see very clearly where this signal is coming in. So if you're doing like sporadic E review for FM type stuff on your recordings and you're using console, I recommend taking this slider. And for the folks on the podcast, the slider I'm talking about is on the far right hand side of the screen. There's a slider where you have kind of a scale here from like -10 down to -150, 160, somewhere in there. I like to shrink it down real tight so that the top end of that slider is sitting right about 110, -110 or so. And then the bottom part of that slider is right about, I would say, is like -120, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. And then you can slide, once you've got that kind of your top and bottom set, you can slide the whole thing, just click and drag the whole thing up and down. And as you go down, right, you're going to be increasing your contrast more and more and more. And the higher you have that contrast cranked, I'm going to go back here where the bottom again is around 125 or so. That's where you'll start to see some of these weak signals populate on the waterfall. So let me go back down here again. Here's some more. Now here's an area where there's nothing. But every once in a while, you might see a little dot. And here's a little splotch. You can barely see. But let me go back up here to where it was the strongest. And I'm using strongest in air quotes when I say that because, I mean, that's still at, let's see, -110, -112 dBm. That is weak. So, and if you have a lower noise floor than I do, some of you might have a noise floor closer to 130, 140, -130, 140. So drag that sucker down even lower. Drag that bottom until it's like in your noise floor. The bottom of the little blob we're talking about on the contrast thing, drag that bottom part until it's down into your noise floor almost. And you should be able to then see the signals that are rising above it. So that's how I do my FM review. This file, let's see, what frequency am I on? 106.9. I'm on 106.9 at 1237. So let's just go down here to where I was at when I left off here. 1237. Scroll down until we get right about here. So now again, what I'm looking for here is, let me recenter. And okay, so I'm looking, here's my trace area right here. And so all these little splotches here, this is a little bit stronger signal. So that's where I want to really kind of focus my attention.
3367, Abadía Monte Oliveto, un desarrollo con sello de calidad de Grupo Productor Peasa.
Radio 106.9, la fórmula perfecta.
Pues no nos gustó, mi Localidad de Veracruz confirma
9403-3367, Abadía Monte Oliveto, un desarrollo con sello de calidad de Grupo Productor Peasa.
The question came up, Dennis asked about the video recorder. So you can definitely do a video recorder here. And it's going to give you, exactly here. I'll show you how it works. So we're just going to.
Radio 106.9.
3367, Abadía Monte Oliveto, un desarrollo con sello de calidad de Grupo Productor Peasa.
Radio 106.9, la fórmula perfecta.
Pues no nos gustó, mi Localidad de Veracruz confirma que la maestra Irma...
Un desarrollo con sello de calidad de Grupo Productor Peasa.
Radio 106.9. La fórmula perfecta.
So it does a pretty good job. It actually kind of boosts the signal up a little bit louder than what I had it here. So you have some options of what you want to do. So yeah, it's good. It's a good little video recorder, and I would use it, but I put our watermark on our air checks and stuff like that. That's why I use Bandicam. And Bandicam also does some other things that I like, where I can like schedule recordings in advance and stuff like that if I want to, for like grabbing a live stream, things like that. So Bandicam does some stuff that I can't do with this. But if all you're wanting to do is just take, hey, I just want to upload my air checks as they are from SDR Console and put them up on YouTube or save them on my computer, that one's perfectly fine to do that in Console, and works really, really well. And also, if you don't want the video, you just want the audio portion of the air check, that's where the audio recorder over here works really, really well for that. And you would click on record and hit start, and it would actually record the audio to whatever folder you have set up here. So it also works really, really well as well. And you can set it up so that it will wait a certain amount of seconds before it starts recording once you click the button. So it actually gives you a few seconds before it actually does its thing. So, or it'll pull back. I'm sorry, the cache pulls back the number of seconds. So let's say I start recording right at 12:36 and I have it set to 30 seconds. It'll record back 30 seconds back from where I started at. So it would start at like 12:36:28 here in this case. So good for audio, and the video recorder is good as well. So as you saw, let's do some more AMDX, and we're going to switch it up a little bit. We've been doing graveyard, and I think we beat that one pretty well. Now we do have the rest of this week left for the graveyard challenge. So make sure you finish that up and get your stuff in. I'll tell you this: we're going to release our next challenge on next Friday's episode on Halloween night. I'll tell you this: it's not a frequency range. It's not a frequency range. We're doing another theme, but what theme are we doing? All right. Let me know where you guys want me to go. I'm going to do a really quick scan, so I want to see what conditions look like. I'm going to do a really quick scan of our Latin beacon frequencies just to get a sense of kind of, is it one of them nights? And if not, then just let me know what frequency you want me to go to, and we can take a look. I always start, though, with 1510. Let's see if Radio Monumental is coming in from Ecuador.
She then suggests that the aneurysm was caused by stress, and the teaser shows her dealing with her ex-husband Kanye West and studying for a law exam. I'm Mark Mayfield.
That's entertainment. I'm Jennifer Fulsoni.
Talking about what matters.
Things are happening in this country.
Hola, Charles.
The whole world has changed, man. I'm telling you.
All right, 1510 is Nashville as all get out. I don't hear anything from Monumental in there underneath. 910. Okay. Probably La FM in San Andres.
Actually, it isn't just Paul who says this. It's a common theme in the New Testament. Now, it's always a good idea.
There's some nice 1090 hash. IBOC hash. Lovely. So we would have to go lower sideband to get away from that.
And develops it more fully. What I was seeing.
Do you think if the folks who pioneered the early days of AM radio, obviously Marconi, but do you think the early guys who really kind of got things started, like I think about it like Frank Conrad, would Frank Conrad look at our dial now and listen to that and be like, what is that? I don't think they like it. I don't think they like that, because let's face it, those early folks in radio, they were DXers. Okay, as I'm doing this research that I'm doing for my first history of radio, that's one thing that I've definitely seen very clearly is those early folks in radio, the experimenters, the tinkerers, the folks who kind of got things moving, they were DXers. All right. They were all kinds of DXers back in those days. And the common man, the common radio listener for like the first 20, 30 years or so, a large portion of your audience was also a DXer. Where now, it's, radio's ubiquitous and everyone knows, what it is. And it's just like, I call it the normies, the non-DXers are out there listening to radio. But back then, your audience was pretty much DXers, especially in the 20s. Especially in the 20s, your audience was DXers because they all did it. So do you think they would like this? Do you think they'd like that IBOC hash? Ugh. I don't.
Pointless. After what Paul says, no Christian preacher can say.
I don't like that at all.
That resurrection isn't ahead of it.
Then I'm estimating she's going to run completely out of money.
And we've got more on 1070 from 1080. I think that's KRLD hash that we see on 1070. And I'm pretty sure that's...
And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless.
Is that TAM? I mean, that seems very odd to be TAM hash, considering I don't have very much of TAM, but I guess the hash kind of gets through. The one that always blew my mind was this one. When you get up here to WOAI land. Oh, it's not as bad as it used to be. Back in the day, this was awful. Awful.
5-5, 7:22 to go here in the third. Williamson with Wenby coming all the way out to challenge him.
Utah? You guys talk about Utah UAS? Or EAS, rather? Well, let's go. Let's go take a gander. We're going to go here to the West Super Loop. Here's my West Super Loop, looking out towards ASL. And there's more IBOC hash.
Sirens went off at noon, and everybody stopped. And
that's not local. Come on. There we go. Now we can get away from that hash a little bit. Now that is a very valid point, Jacob. That is very valid. I miss those days, Charles. I miss the days of when I was in Charles. And now I'm not complaining because Mandeville is an amazing location for DX. But I do miss knowing that on the northeast end or the east side of or southeast side of my antennas when I was in Charleston was nothing but ocean between me and the next signal. Those were really nice. Yeah, where's my Jetsons car? I was promised Jetsons cars, at the very least some hoverboard. Where's my hoverboard? I want to hear KSL in there right now. Where is my hoverboard? Let's go over here and let's check out 1610. I just want to see if I have any TIS traffic in here. Now you watch, it'll make a liar out of me. Mini whip. Well, that's Ontario. That's my Southeast Kaz. Nothing on that one. I was hoping maybe Florida TISs would show up. Hey, there's Mexico Mike. My man, yeah. Where's my damn jetpack, man? I want my jetpack. Take care, Kaz. Charles, right now we're on the Kiwi. But we're bouncing around a little bit. Yeah, nothing. Nothing. Let me check really quick on our other Kiwi here and see if it has anything, because that's the big one down south. That's a nah. Anything up top? Any pirates? Nah. Now, I misspoke earlier. I said I hadn't heard a TIS in a very long time. I was incorrect. Well, our TIS is in there, but it's not very loud. Normally that is... see, Causeway. Normally that's my local TIS. Let me see if they're any better on the mini whip. Nope. I have not heard a scenario where they were on and being overtaken like this. That's the first time I've seen that in 4 years. Normally when I hear other stuff on this frequency, it's because they're off air. Because they're like a mile from my house. But that's... that also could be why. I just realized I have my threshold down really high because of graveyards. So that might be why we weren't hearing anything on 1610. Oh, yeah. Charles, I did a de-expedition out to Outer Banks. Right at Nag's Head. I took a DCAS in my Perseus, and I took a AirSpy HF Plus Discovery and a W6 LVP loop. And unfortunately, the DCAS part didn't work out very well because of electrical noise in the cabin next to us. I couldn't get rid of it. But I did take my AirSpy down. I had a little portable Sony, my ICF 2010. I took it down to the beach. This was like February of 2021. Took it down to the beach, and I found where the noise went away, and I set up my laptop, my SDR, and my loop right there on the beach. And I did 2 sunset recordings and 1 sunrise. And I've completed the sunrise recording review, and it was chock full of some really, really good DX. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut, all of New England, as you would imagine. Now I'm starting the sunset, and you know what I'm looking for on those recordings. Hoping there's some transatlantic in there, but that's a project for another day. I don't think that's a TIS. Now you can hear my TIS, my local. Well, you could. And this station here that's on top with the music, that is Texas, for sure. It's KKLF, or that might be... Yeah, that's probably KKLF. I was hoping for a Radio Jalapeno ID, but no such luck. Let's go down. Let's go down and see if we have anything here at 5:30 besides Encyclopedia. All right, let's go back up to 1160 because we're right here at the time frame when we should be getting the Utah EAS. We're on our West Super Loop. Let's see if we can hear it. We got about, 2 minutes? Minute and a half? All right, we should be getting pretty close here. Let's see if we hear some EAS tones as Utah sends their alert test. $11.60 KSL is what we're looking for. not hearing it, man. I'm not hearing a thing out of Utah right now. So we'll see if we maybe caught him on our recording that we have running on our Perseus, but I doubt it. It's a bit noisy in the direction of the west this evening. So let's go back over to our PA0 RDT mini whip, and let's go looking around here at we'll go back to the graveyard now. Let's go to 1490 and see what we can flush out. Top of the hour time frame again. We'll go Mike mute and listen to see if we can get any IDs here in about a minute and 10 seconds or so. Maybe we can get this high school football. Take care, Master Player. Appreciate you being here as always, man. I was hopeful there that one of those would rise, the high school football game or one of the music stations. I was hopeful that one of those would pop up. Ergo, the challenge of the graveyard, right? That's what we kind of have to deal with sometimes, is the graveyard is a challenge, and that's why we do the graveyard challenge. All right, so let's take a quick look at the Tropo forecast, and then we can probably adjourn. This is Bill Hepburn's Tropo forecast. I will, as always, put this in the chat for you guys because I want you to make sure that you're using this resource if you are not yet doing so. Especially if you're near a coastal area or near like the Great Lakes, things like that. This is a great resource for you. And also check out the rest of his DX Info Center. They have a lot. He has a lot of great stuff up there. Bill does, including, we talked about longwave earlier, an NDB list, station list of NDBs up there. I use it all the time. So check out the dxinfocenter.com website as a whole, but also here is our Tropo forecast. So we're looking at the eastern half of the United States. We know typically what we see on the western half, we'll double check to make sure, but typically it's not much out there, except right along the California coast. So starting with, let's get caught up to where we are now. It is almost knocking, I guess, close to 3 UTC. And we have a couple little bit of news down here along the Gulf Coast, maybe a little bit of something over here in Florida. So you folks along the South Carolina, extreme South Carolina coast, Georgia into Florida, you guys might have a little bit of something this evening. Some, we'll call it moderate to high because he calls it moderate to high. That's the color rate that we have here. And then we'll see it kind of push in a little bit. So that stuff that's there inland right now in Florida, pushing out into the Gulf a little bit. As we get into around 7 a.m. in the morning, you'll see it's just kind of off the coastline here. Things kind of quiet as we get it through the day, but then as we get into Sunday evening, it's where we get into Monday. That's when things start popping off again. And you'll see here up on the Great Lakes area a little bit, very, very light, fair to marginal tropo up here right now. Nothing really super great. Most of it's down here where we are here in the Gulf. So a little bit here on the South Carolina, North Carolina coast, extreme northeast, South Carolina, southwest, or I guess southeast, North Carolina right here along the coastline. And then watch what happens. We get into 7 o'clock Monday morning, starts to build in a little bit down here along the Texas coast into Louisiana coast, a little bit south of me. So I'm not anticipating much. And then that will continue to push in as we get into Tuesday. And then, boy, watch this. You can actually see, we talk about how this aligns with like the meteorology of what's happening in the atmosphere and the troposphere. Take a look. You'll actually see this front push through and clear it out. I mean, that's what we typically see like in the wintertime, right? We'll get these little bursts of tropo that'll come in as things kind of get a little muggy here. And then there's always this cold front that comes in and pushes it out. And there it is. Pushes it out. And then we get left with nothing except for right off the Florida coast. So as we get into next week, I'm not anticipating much once we get past maybe Tuesday. And that's going to be kind of localized over towards that Louisiana, Texas border right there along the coastline. It's going to be pretty common stuff we usually see. And then it clears out as we go into next week. So not a whole lot there on the Tropo forecast to get super excited about. But, hey, we always like to check because we like to make sure that we're not missing out on anything. Because I've had that happen before where I just wasn't paying attention. Big Tropo opening occurred. I wasn't in it. And everybody was like, oh, man, we had this awesome Tropo. And I was like, I didn't look at the forecast. I'm stupid. So there you go. Let's see. Jacob says someone on 1450 has been playing a 8343 hertz tone in their signal only visible when I put the loop in east-west. Noticed it coming and going the last few nights. That might be a fun one to track down. That would be nice to figure out because those are always nice in the graveyard when you get those little helpers like that. Either like a nice offset or one of those that's broadcasting the tone because they forgot to turn off their feed of like a ball game or something. And so it's like, this is a blah, blah, blah network, beep, right? That can be nice to help you kind of narrow down who it is sometimes when you're just inundated with the mush like we have been tonight. That's going to do it for us for this evening, folks. Don't forget, we'll have this episode up on the podcast here this weekend. For those of you who were watching live, the podcast folks, hopefully you're enjoying this episode. We'll be back next Friday with more DX Central Live. We'll hopefully have the website and the archive up and running by then. And hopefully by then we'll have also uploaded our brand new episode of the podcast, our first in the series on the history of radio. Very excited to be sharing that one with you guys. I think you're going to like it quite a bit. For our sponsors, the National Radio Club, nationalradioclub.org, the International Radio Club of America, ircaonline.org, and the Spectrum Monitor, thespectrummonitor.com. From all of us here at DX Central, my friends, take care. 73, best of DX to you. We'll see you next week with a new challenge and more DX Central Live right in 2345 UTC. We'll see you Friday.
This has been the DX Central from the Static Podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring this podcast, let us know by emailing sponsors@fromthestatic.net. If you have a story to share for our Stories from the Static series, send those to our email address, stories@fromthestatic.net. Be sure to join us for our live DX live stream every Friday night at 2345 UTC, 1845 Central Time on our YouTube channel or at dxcentrallive.com.
The DX Central from the Static podcast is copyright 2025, Lloyd Van Horn, DX Central. All rights reserved. No portion of this podcast may be rebroadcast or reused without the express written authorization of Lloyd Van Horn and DX Central. Be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, as new episodes will be posted regularly. Join us next time for the DX Central from the Static podcast.